Hey there, AGA members. Chris Garlock here with Michael Redmond, 9 Dan Professional. Today, the 30th game in the AlphaGo Self-Play Series. But first, as usual, we'd like to ask you to consider, please, joining the American Go Association. Become an AGA member. Very simple. You go to usgo.org, click on Join the AGA, and you'll find out all about the wonderful things you get for being a member. And it's really the support of our AGA members that makes these videos possible. And we know that you all enjoy them. And so we want to be able to keep them coming because we still have 20 games or so to go. So big thanks to all of those of you who have joined. Big thanks to all of our AGA members. And big thanks to all of you who will join. All right, let's get on with game 30. Michael.
Okay.
Game 30. Game 30. I hope it's something special. I got
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, good. What do we got?
Well, this is the one game in the whole set of games in which AlphaGo played a variation of the Taisha, the big knight's move.
Oh, you talked about that a little while ago. I remember.
And it reminds me of a variation that was played in the air reddening game. So pretty soon we'll be doing a commentary on the air reddening game also, between Shusaku and Genan Inseki.
Right. Right. Do you want to give us a quick little sneak preview? I mean, I think a lot of people do know about the air reddening game, but just remind
it was this
folks.
game played about 200 years ago. Let's see. I think it was the 1840s, 1846 or something like that. And it was when Shusaku was still, I think he was a 4-dan. And Genan Inseki was the leader of the Inoue house. And he was recognized as one of the strongest players. So he was probably a Jun Meijin, which makes him something like an 8-dan in the present system. And so that was, the Meijin was only one person. And at that point there, let's see, maybe there was a Meijin. Maybe Joa was still, Hoinbo Joa was still the Meijin, I think.
Well, if he wasn't, we'll hear about it.
Just one person who's the Meijin, who's a 9-dan. And then there's maybe one or two Jun Meijin level players, 8-dan players, usually. So it's a very high rank for the system there. And Shusaku was supposed to play 2 stones. I think he was a 2-stone handicap. And they actually did play a 2-stone handicap the first day. But then Genan saw that it was hopeless. And he offered to play it, give black sen, to give Shusaku sen. So Shusaku played just with black. And that was the air reddening game in which he played a fantastic move in the center of the board. And we're going to find about it because we're going to find out that actually the computer programs didn't choose to play that move. But that's something I'll talk about in that video.
Right. So we will be doing, and you know, folks really like the last historic game that we did. So just in case you were starting to worry, like, what's going to happen when we eventually run out of AlphaGo games? We have a plan, and it does involve among other things, more historic games.
Among other things, yes.
Among other things. So,
okay,
all right.
Let's just get into the game.
Game 30.
So again, black is playing 3-4 points. I really like the way that AlphaGo is allowed to have a lot of variety in the way it plays the openings in this set of games. That is why I'm choosing these games more than the AlphaGo Zero games, in which it has a much more narrow number of choices in the opening.
Right.
It's much more limited. We have well, this was played hundreds of years ago, but it's a sort of modern-looking joseki, and AlphaGo always starts with the kakari here. Like just about anyone knows that the joseki move is to play a stone in the middle of the side, but AlphaGo almost never does that. It plays the kakari here. And white could pincer, and this is actually going to look like something that AlphaGo Zero and AlphaGo Master did in their series. It's something that could actually happen, is that we could get into this variation. And if that exact same variation is played, this is going to work for black in this position, because the joseki, you might say, that AlphaGo Zero and AlphaGo Master were playing every other game. They played this joseki in about 10 games, I think. It goes like this. This is the pattern that they played. This knight's move is going to be forcing. White's going to have to answer something like this. And black's going to get a nice attack against white on the left side. So this is actually the direction of play is working fairly well for black in this position. To the point that white might actually be doing something different. Like at this point, white does have the option of playing from underneath and doing stuff like this, and then maybe playing something in the center of the board. So this would be a completely different game. In the actual game, white just answered. So that's relatively simple.
Mm.
And then, of course, instead of, again, before AlphaGo, people would be playing here. But AlphaGo would always play something like this. So this has become the popular move now. And this is where white plays a move that I still don't like. And actually, it's pretty rare. It's one of the moves that has not become mainstream after AlphaGo played it. And I think that most humans just don't like the idea of playing this hanging connection. And I can't really justify it, this move. Because I would say that when white plays this way, we get into this Joseki. And I would play the Joseki move here, and black will push. When this happens, maybe something like this might follow. Having the stone at A is definitely better for white than having that stone at B. So that's one of the differences between this position and this position, where white has played the hanging connection. This position gives white a bigger territory, more territory on the side. It also puts a bit more pressure on the black group. So that's an advantage for white. The other difference is that white has played C for D. That exchange has filled a liberty for white. So it puts these three white stones into a shortage of liberties. So there's a negative aspect there. But also it gave white this peep on the outside, this peep here. So there's a positive aspect too also. So there's pros and cons for white to have played, oh, I lost the label. The label, yeah, the C there. There's pros and cons to that exchange for black D. The fact that white is in Damezmari, and the fact that white got that marked peep in there. So it's ambiguous. Well, I think that the difference between A and B is very clear. So I still don't like this move. And I'm not finding a way to explain why AlphaGo might have chosen that.
Well, I mean, it does set up B2 as nice shape, but that seems hardly...
It's nice shape. Maybe you could say that white has more eye space potential,
right?
In a way. But actually, I find in this position also white has white's shape is pretty much alive anyway.
Right.
So I don't really see that's a big issue there. I just don't like it.
Well,
allow me to have that opinion.
No, but you talked about it in the last game too. At a certain point, that it almost, I don't know if you used the word taste, but you can't, certainly for humans. I'm just speaking for yourself. I mean, you just don't like it, I mean, now you've talked before about there are moves of AlphaGos that you didn't like at first, but then as you sort of understood them or used them in your own games.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a very subtle difference anyway. It's probably bad, for better or worse. It's going to be a very subtle difference.
Fair enough.
So black plays here, white plays here. And this is a very flexible move. Like, I sort of like this move. It's, the shape is weaker when you compare it to a black move at A, but it does have more control on the right side. There's a weakness in black's shape. When I say the shape is weaker, I'm talking about some aji for white to play an attachment here. And this is actually going to happen later in the game in a slightly different context. But stuff like this could happen where white is getting a way to invade the left side. So I made this variation where the corner is not 100% alive. White is more or less alive on the left side. Black's corner, when white kills it, it's going to be a bent 4 in the corner. So that's a shape that eventually dies, but it's really hard for white to actually kill it. So in actual practice, black's going to get to attack here first before having to live in the corner. And I'm not really sure that this is going to be good for white. And there's also playing it immediately, that is. It's probably better for white to have an extension on the lower side before trying to do this. There's also the fact that this Atari is not always going to be forcing now. Sometimes black will just play away when white does that. It's not so big at this point of the game. And that's another thing that I have about this, comparing to this variation where white plays it in the start. White has that Atari in. When all of this has happened now, the value of that Atari here, this Atari, the value of it has gone down a bit because all of the other stones have been played first. At this point of the game, it would be very slow for white to be playing so many moves in the lower left corner just to take that. There would be overlapping with some moves that white had played already. And so that's so I like that black move that does control the left side. White moves the upper left corner. And black plays a big shimari. So this is a point where, again, very few players would have played this move before AlphaGo. Because there's a tendency to make the corner territory. So maybe black would play the one space shimari. And there are pros and cons. For instance, when black plays the small shimari, there's more room for white to dive into the right side, like with C here. And there's more room for white on the right side when white does that. Whereas if white does it in this case, let's see if I made that variation. Yes. Now if white does that, it's a much better territory for black in the corner and less room for white on the right side. So that's that one space, one line difference makes a big difference. Otherwise, I think this is how white would play in that case. Something like this. And there's pros and cons. Like in this case, white still, the problem with this big shimari, this move that black started with, is that there's a bit of bad aji in the corner. So white, even now, white still has some potential with a move at A or B to make some trouble in the corner. I think white would continue with C for the time being. But, you know, with AlphaGo playing, there's no way that whole upper side is going to be white territory. We're going to see a fight on the upper side. So instead of that, white did not play this move, which is a move that computer programs like. It's a move that AlphaGo liked. It plays this move. Now this taisha is a joseki that seems to have become very popular in the Edo era, in the 19th century, Japan, and there was a lot of study done on it, and it was played in the era Redmond game. So that's why I make the connection there. A very similar variation was chosen. And so it's interesting to see it here. In the Master Series, AlphaGo playing against human top pros on the internet, in that series, AlphaGo played it a few times, but it seemed to have a special opening in which it liked to play this joseki. And so there were, I could differentiate between the openings in which it would press here, and then there would be a slight difference that was it was constant. There was that slight difference every time that AlphaGo wanted to play the large knights move here. So it had a special position where it liked to play this move, but didn't seem to be playing it in just any random position. So I got the feeling from the Master Series that AlphaGo didn't really like this move, but saw it as a special tack that was working in a special position.
Okay.
But it plays it here. This is the one game in the 50 games that it chose to play this move. And actually, looking at other programs, the Japanese computer program Zen, which is available, it's something that you can get in software. It actually liked to play this move. It played it a lot on the internet against professional players, and it's a move that it likes. And it gets into a similar variation also. So it's interesting that the computers all choose the same follow-up for this joseki. So this follows, black plays this way, white wedges. This is the main line up to this point. And this is where it varies. This is where it branches out. White can play A, B, or C. And throughout the history of this joseki, people have called white A the main line. Let's see if I put a variation in. If white plays A in this case, white has so many stones on the upper side, black's probably just going to sacrifice 2 stones. So this is a point, let's just go back a bit. This is a point where the joseki has black playing something like this. But with that solid position white has in the upper left, and not really any potential for black to make any territory on the upper side, this is a case where black will probably want to concentrate on building up black's potential on the left side and the right side. So something like this could follow. And white just has these 2 solid positions in the upper side. Black's going to sacrifice those 2 stones.
Mm-hmm.
This would be about even. I'd be happy to play with black, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, white pushes here. Now, this is the move that Gian Iseki played in the game against Shusaku. So that's where I make a very strong connection here. And it's hard to say for sure, but Ganon's game could have been the first game in which it was played.
Really?
And the Inoue school was a school that had a lot of secret studies. That was a period in Japanese history where they had 4 iemotos. That's a kind of a family school. That were basically the full 4 schools of professional players, and they had their secrets. Like they had these castle games they played once a year, which were very important for the prestige of their school. And so they had these special moves that they studied, and they kept secret so they could use them in the castle games.
They weren't trick moves, but they were sort of. I mean, this is how sort of Go was developed too. Pushing.
There was a lot of study. They were moving very quickly forward, but not quite as open about it. Well, like now with the internet, when someone plays a new move, we know immediately.
Right.
But actually, we don't really know exactly when someone first played this move. It's possible that when Gian Inseki played it against Shusaku, it could have been the first game. A true Go historian will probably be able to give the facts for that.
I'm sure somebody will tell us once we post this game.
But Shusaku made a mistake in that variation, which sort of suggests that maybe he was seeing it for the first time.
Okay.
So we'll get into a variation here. Extending here, this was sort of the main line. But there were always these 2 moves. Like Shusaku actually played this way in a game against Shuwa shortly after, in the following year. So this was one of the variations that was played, but it seems that this was the main line in most of the games played. But with computers playing the game, they almost never choose this move. They always choose this move. And in this case, black can get into a lot of trouble on the right side because white's going to push a bit. Oh, in this case, white extended, yeah, and crawled. So this is kind of I'm reproducing the air reddening, the opening in the air reddening game, just a local position, where black A was a mistake and it should have been a slide at B. And we'll go into detail in that game. But this is actually very similar to the right side position that happened in this game. It's a position where at this point black should have slided down the second line. But Shusaku got into a lot of trouble here in this local position, but managed to weather that fight with only a slight loss. It was very exciting. But in this game black plays here, this actually simplifies things a little bit, because it's putting more pressure on the corner. So white extends here, and black is already attacking the corner. White has to do something in the corner, and white plays this move, which is sort of counterintuitive, because this is a dead shape. It's not alive yet.
That's terrible.
And those of us who have done our Tsumego problems know that this makes a life. White can live this way. The drawback is that black gets to push white around. Like, this is a very painful way to live. It's just 2 or 3 points, 3 points. And black has a nice shape on the right side. White cannot do the double hane now, so black's okay on the right side, a healthy group. So black is healthy on both sides. Actually, to add to that, I could say that black still has a forcing move here also, which will obviously not be played immediately, but it will eventually make a difference to black's eye shape on the upper side too. So there's a lot of extra goodies for black, pushing white around in the corner. So that's not, it's just living like this with this move, which would be the answer to a life and death problem. Mm-hmm. It's not the best move here. This is putting a lot more pressure on black on the side. And black slides. Again, sliding is the better move. Shusaku made a mistake when he crawled in that game. In this game, crawling, again, it would lead to a much sharper variation. In fact, in this case, the latter favors white, so white might even play the double hane immediately. And it looks like black cannot capture. Forgive me if I make a mistake here.
Yeah.
I'm doing this, but it looks like the latter favors white, so this would be bad for black.
Okay.
Even though it's a bad shape, it's bad for black to die on the side. So black slides. And white plays here. This is sort of interesting the way AlphaGo plays this far and then does not play the Atari. And I could find no good reason not to play the Atari. But it's not a big deal because black's not going to play that point either. So it doesn't really matter. No real reason not to play it, but it's not a big issue not playing it either. White's going to play it eventually. So black is more or less connected up on the side. And white is left with a group in the corner that's not alive yet. So white will have to go back. So white does. White finally goes back to the corner. And black gets to fix the position on the right side. So while black was really low there for a while, when black gets to play this move, that fixes most of black's problems on the right side. And black ends up with what is looking like a nice territory there in the corner. Black is playing on the upper side, so black is played on both sides. White has this group that looks sort of like a wall. To an attacking player, it would look like a target too. So it's really hard to say how that's going to turn out.
I'm not going to make the obvious political comment about a wall. So we're just moving on here. Yeah. I mean about a wall that looks like a wall but isn't a wall. We'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. Yeah. Okay, so black finishes the upper side. This is a big move, and it settles the black group. Like if white had played, let's have white play here. If white had played here, that would have been putting some pressure on the black stones.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now white plays here. Now, what's this move? This is a really weird looking move.
That's a really weird looking move.
It's a weird looking move.
Is that an ear-reddening move?
I don't know.
A
no one was looking when I first saw it.
a diode reddening move?
A diode reddening move, maybe. But I found a reason for it. Like, if black answers here on normally, then it becomes Tetsuji for white to play this. And actually, this is working better with that stone in on the fifth line, because white is actively threatening to break through here. That's the threat behind. That's where this stone becomes really, this exchange here becomes really good for white.
Mm-hmm.
And so if black answers like this, then black can hold it together, but white's going to get to play some forcing moves here. And this would just be really good for white. The white would be getting a lot on the outside. So I think the idea here is for if black plays here, that white's going to play here, just to play another forcing move there. Black could avoid all that trouble by playing something like this. But again, it would be, white would be getting to push black around a little bit and would be getting some extra profit, potential profit on the lower side. With AlphaGo, it's always potential because white's probably not going to finish that off and would probably switch to the left side of the board or something, just leaving that extra potential there. So black counterattacks. And we can see black is sort of hoping for an attack against white on the center. The center. White chooses this time to play the Atari. Again, there's no logical reason that I can understand, but it doesn't matter because it's forcing anyway. And extends. Again, these forcing moves always come at unexpected times. And white plays strongly. Like if white allows black to push it around,
wow.
Then of course black will be able to play something on the outside here. it's quite likely that black would just be swallowing up that one white stone. So white plays strongly, and black's going to counterattack. And this is where it gets really, really complicated.
Yeah.
There's still a strong possibility that black could sacrifice this stone in the center if black can get the lower right corner on a large scale.
Okay.
Like even something like this. Even something like this would probably be playable for black, because the lower right corner, with that solid shape that black has, it would be relatively difficult for white to get anything there, even though black lost some points in the center. This is probably the general idea that black has. So white plays the key point also. So like I was showing in the variation just now, this is a key point that ruins black's shape, and if black had played it, it would have ruined white's shape. It's the same thing. It's the same thing for both sides. And black does dodge it, but you can see that there's that looks like it's a kind of an awkward shape for black. There's trouble brewing there. For instance, just because black got into so much trouble in the lower right corner, I tried playing a safe move for black. So that's what this variation is. White's going to play here anyway, and white gets to squeeze. And this would just be bad for black. It's just too good for white, getting so many stones on the outside. So instead, black plays here. Obviously, it doesn't allow the squeeze, but we're going to see what happens later. And it's going to be, so white plays this forcing move. So Chris, would you answer it A, or would you answer it J17?
Oh, I see. Yeah, J17.
Yeah. Well, this is a position where white is trying to play these forcing moves. So that's the idea. Or maybe white's, we didn't see this in the game, so I'm guessing here. Maybe white's going to play this. This is a forcing move that white could play, threatening to push through and cut. So white's trying to get these extra stones just to change what's happening.
Right.
So I thought maybe black would play here when I saw this move. This would take away that extra forcing move.
Right. Okay, I see.
Yeah. So that's the level we are at, but AlphaGo doesn't do either of those.
Of course not. That's why I thought it was a trick question. So I was figuring
it was one of the trick questions. But like, the point is, this is a position where I would be trying to make that same choice between A and J17.
Yeah.
Which is the better way to answer. AlphaGo just doesn't answer. So that's a difference I see. And this is maybe it's the one chance for black to start moving out here. So when I see what happens in the game, I see that this is it's a very sharp move. It's a dangerous move for white too. And like if white plays here, black still has this stuff to do. And it's not as if it's going to be a complete disaster for black. Like this would heat up the fight in the center too. It would make it more dangerous for white. So white actually doesn't take the opportunity to play that move. Instead, white continues the fight in the center. White extended. The other option locally would be to play a hane.
I was just looking at the hane, but yeah, does it work? This would be
stronger. Black has to escape with the jump here. The problem is that this move is a bit threatening.
Yeah.
A bit threatening to white. White would probably answer it. And then black would be able to jump out in the center.
I see.
And you see, although white got to play that to cover on the third line there, it's hard to say who's attacking. There's that weak point at B. Let's just go into B for a bit, just to show the potential for black. Black is threatening to cut on the right here, pushing through here. So let's say white answers mundanely like this. Now there's threat here with the cut here. So although black does not have a perfect shape either, there's these weaknesses in white's position.
Right.
Which are a bit of a headache eventually. As I was showing, I think if black does it that way, black would not be using them immediately, but would be, instead black would probably be moving out here. But that white shape is not so safe actually. So white extends. Extending is probably the better move. And black extends. And now white plays a hane. So what about cutting that's the second. This is interesting because actually there's a way for white to capture that stone. White plays an Atari first, and then plays here. So this is the double threat that white has.
Yeah.
It's 3 stones. And the point is that there's no way for white to escape with these stones, for black to escape with these stones without at some point playing this cut. Otherwise, they're just captured. So if black plays the cut, then that means that these 2 stones are going to be captured in the lab.
Wow.
So it's pretty much impossible for black to solve both of those problems at the same time. So white plays the Hane, and now black jumps. Sorry, I got into the variation again. And white plays the hanging connection.
Peaceful.
And here. Now this is a very strange looking vital point. The vital point you're probably used to is this one. But this one doesn't work. If black plays there, white's just going to go in between. And actually, it's sort of tricky for black to even try to save this stone. Because if black is just pushing with moves like that, it's pretty obvious that the center stones are going to die. And if black plays the more aggressive cut, turns out that there's no escape route, and these stones are going to die. Although black gets Atari here, that's not good enough. And you can see that white has a pretty solid shape, an extra outside liberty. White's going to win the fight to capture. So that didn't work for black. So black plays. Now this is strangely a key point. Like if white answers here, again, black can play here, and we're looking at weak points at A and B. So it's more difficult for white to cut this stone off when you compare to this one, where white can just come in between. I think that the main difference is that it's more difficult for white to cut this stone off. Of course, white tries. So white plays the attachment here, and black plays a Hane, white extends. So white did cut it off, but this is going to be slightly better for black when black pushes through here. Otherwise, black could try cutting. Again, cutting first is not so good. It gives white fairly good shape here when white plays this way. And white would capture some black stones in the center.
Wow.
So that would be okay for white. So black pushes through first, and slightly more efficient shape for black, you might say. White cuts here. Now this is it's sort of hard to tell what's happening here. So I made a very
I am getting so confused.
For a moment, it looks like black can capture those white stones on the right side.
And I'm assuming that white has decided to sack them for some reason.
Yeah, pretty much so. White plays here and gets to squeeze like this. And in this, when I made this variation, I was forgetting to play this exchange. Never mind. It's good for white even without that exchange. So black captures the 7 stones, but look at that thick shape white has in the center.
Whoa.
And the upper side is going to be in trouble now.
That is amazing.
This is good for white. And as I was saying, if I had been paying attention when I made that variation, there would have been this exchange in also.
Right, which is nice as well. Yeah.
That would be a slight bonus for white.
That's just, black captured, but it just feels so dissatisfying.
Yes,
it's just
terrible.
bad.
Yeah, it's just bad.
Ah.
So black escapes in the center. So it makes sense. Yeah. And white plays once here and then plays here. Okay. So connecting here is slow because white will just attack in the center. It doesn't look like black can save these stones. This hanging connection here is making a dead end. It's going to be difficult for black to get around. So like when black connects there, white plays a Hane on the outside. It's already trouble for black. So instead, black plays the wedge here. It's sort of a very interesting variation they got into here. And black takes these 2 stones. And these stones, even though both sides black was sort of alive anyway, they're still cutting stones. They're still very important 2 stones.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're going to make a difference to the lower right corner, what happens in the lower right corner, and on the they've taken away the value this move on the upper side. So they were worth it. And white just plays away. So this is a point where maybe a human would still be locked onto the fight here and try to kill black.
It's human. Yeah? Yes, I thought we were fighting over here.
Yeah, it's going to work. White's going to capture these black stones.
Yes, that's big.
It's big, yeah. You would think so. But black's getting some extra potential in the center. And it turns out that black B is just much more bigger. It's after these two stones are off the board. The fact that black took these two stones, it just reduced the value of the whole area. And it turns out that this actually does look like it's good for black to me.
Yeah, no. I'm totally convinced, but I just was distracted by all the fighting that was going on.
Well, you look at the white group, and it's, since this is a forcing move, going back to the move tool, since this is a forcing move for white, actually this white group is completely alive already.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that the white group is also alive is another reason that this fight is sort of cooled down. It's not so important.
It's done. Yeah. No, okay.
But this is a mistake that even a professional player would easily make to go after black in the center. And usually a human player would be really upset when white killed that black group. And the black player would be upset, white would be happy, and they would both be wrong.
That's the headline for this game.
So white plays the attachment here. And after this, I'm finding it hard to find a good continuation for black. Like extending here, white's probably just going to play this key point. Usually would expect black to answer in a way that does not sacrifice the two stones, in which case white's going to be able to cut here. And if black allows white to capture this one stone, then the whole lower side sort of belongs to white. So the whole lower side would be a difficult fight for black. Black would like to be able to save that one stone. So black's going to play here. And again, we're going to see black winning the semi. Just in case you didn't see that coming.
I saw it this time. I did. I think I'm getting it. I think I'm getting
the patterns.
I'm getting the pattern here.
Yeah.
I'm getting
this
the pattern
is just good
here.
for white again. Like black got something like well, it was looking sort of like a black territory to start with, but I say black got close to 20 points here.
Yeah.
Added to the lower right corner territory, but white got some territory on the lower side. The upper side is in trouble now. White's just attacking all over the place. And white has territory too, so it's okay for white.
Yeah. I love how white sort of dangles this little bait. And
bait.
Even makes the bait a little bigger and a little juicier.
Bigger. Yeah, 5, 7 stones. That's
and it's like, you really want it? You really want it? Okay. But here, you have to take it.
So black played the hane. And white now plays this move. Like this is always, it's pretty big to capture those two stones. After all, these stones that white has in the center, this group here, it's not 100% alive yet.
Right.
It has to capture the black group or connect up to the lower left side at some point. So these capturing, let's mark the two black stones down. Capturing these two stones is always, it's a lot more than just taking the territory.
Right.
So it's turning out that this is always forcing. So black answers here. And we're back in this variation here.
I remember this. Yeah.
Only this time white's going to play the double hane. So that's how this stone is working for white. The double hane is the tesuji here. And white's going to set up a ko. At this point, there's some momentum. Black has some momentum here. Black has to continue and is sort of forced into this ko. And this is just black doesn't have any ko threats.
It's too painful. What's his option here?
Black played a peep here. Now this is actually, at first it looked like it was just hopelessly small. It's a pretty big peep because it's going to save the black stones in the center. So that was the trade they did. Black got about 10 points capturing the 3 marked stones. But the bonus is that it's these stones that were about to die, they're healthy now. And of course, the lower side black group too. So black got a lot of influence. Black has some potential now in the center of the board. But white got a big territory in the, well, white needs one more stone to make that territory real. White really needs to play another move here at some point to make that a corner territory. But in any case, that corner territory that was black's has completely disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was a success for white. Or at least after this point, you know how humans, we don't get a score like the computer does, but we count the territory usually. When you count the territory after this happened, white had a lead in territory throughout the game. So white plays the Atari. So if black answers here, it does mean that white will be aiming at that wedge on the left side. So maybe something like this, something like there's an A there that white can use sometimes to squeeze a little. So that's the idea behind the Atari. This is another case where it was not forcing. Black ignored it. And the center of the board is getting pretty urgent at this point. The center of the board could become a black territory here. So instead of just taking the one stone, which would allow black to play another forcing move here and still have a connection underneath, a potential connection. In this case, the left side would be starting to look like black's territory. But instead, white just dives in. And so this is something for a human player sort of difficult to do. When you have the feeling that you're ahead in territory, you're going to win. It's sort of difficult to embark on an adventure like this. This is a very adventurous move.
Rich men don't pick fights is the saying.
Yeah, well, yeah. AlphaGo doesn't care about money, maybe. And so white pushes through here. And we can see it's amounting to something. White pushes through and is starting to get a territory. Naturally, black would want to reduce it. I would be thinking of playing here, in which case white will escape to the center. Still, it doesn't look like it's going to die. Black's group on the left side is not so healthy either. So this is a fight that white can deal with, I think. This is the game variation. And white plays here. So looks like we have a white territory on the left side.
It does.
It looks like it. Yeah. And now white is, but the center is looking like a black territory. So white plays here. This is a kind of an attack on black on the upper side, threatening, let's mark the stone, threatening black's marked stone here. And in the process of attacking black, white is going to reduce the center. So it's an endgame sequence starting with A. So the white group on the right side, you can see it's alive.
Yep.
And black plays this way. White is starting to connect up on the right side. Black connects, white connects. So this was a peaceful ending to that little fight. And white has reduced the center to a small degree. So it looks like everything is finishing off. White plays the final big move.
Every time you say that, I get a little spidey tingling sense.
Yeah, you get a warning, huh?
I do.
Like so many of AlphaGo's games, this is where the big fight starts.
All hell breaks loose.
Because if the game ends at this peacefully at this point, it's just going to be a win for white. White has more territory. You can just look at the size of black's territory. The only one that is any size worth talking of is the one in the center. So that's, let's see, I didn't actually count it. It's about 35 points, I guess, roughly. Yeah, 30 to 35 points. So black has a total of about 50 points. White has, in the two corners on the upper side, that's 20 points at least. That left side, it looks like it could be 10 points. 5 points in the right half of the board. And then in the lower right corner, that's almost 20 points, probably. Yeah. So 20, 40, 50, 55. Then I haven't even counted the lower left corner. So white's going to win easily. I think I was saying black had something like 55 points. So black plays here. Now this is a kind of this would be an invasion point. It's a move that I would think of playing. I would probably decide it just doesn't work, but it's a move I would think of playing.
Mm-hmm.
In the game, white played here, and this got really interesting.
So I would never have thought of the first one. The second is where I would have responded.
You would have responded here. So you're saying it's AlphaGo.
Yeah. But the first one, I wouldn't. No. That looks.
If I was going to dive into white's territory, that would be the point that I would be looking at.
It just looks so far.
But I'm pretty sure I would decide that it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So since the game got really interesting after white played here, I decided maybe I could simplify it by playing here. White's going to win this semi. Okay, this one. I did find a way that black could get a ko. It was sort of desperate, but black does get a step ko here. I don't think this is going to work for black. Black doesn't have enough ko threat. This is a one-step ko. That means that black needs to win the ko twice, basically. Like let's see. Let's have black play this ko threat, and white plays something like this. Now it's a direct ko. So black's not, and you look at the whole board position. Where do you see any black ko threats? There's hardly any ko threats for black anywhere on the board. Everything that white has is so solid.
Everything is done.
Yeah. Well, black does have ko threats against white in the upper right corner.
Right.
But the point is that when it's a step ko and white has played a ko threat like this that black has ignored, now the center becomes more important. So even if black did kill the upper right corner, okay, this would still be good for white. White would squeeze here, and white would be getting something like a 30-point game, well, 20-point game or gain or more in the center, plus getting some extra territory on the left side. This is probably good enough for white. Or white could just have, white could have started with, just in case I miscalculated that, white could have started with a ko threat like this, which would maybe be even more forcing. So black is going to run out of ko threats, I think. I don't really see this as a dangerous variation for white. So maybe this was a safer way for white to finish the game. In the actual play, it got so exciting that I would be very worried with white. So black plays here. This is the game variation.
Okay.
White covers, obviously.
Okay.
Black plays here. Now there's a few cutting points here.
Yeah, I didn't see up to here. This looks like a problem.
It's a problem. It sort of looks like white can handle it by playing here. So I made a variation for that. Surprisingly, white doesn't have so many liberties here. In fact, this is just dead. Let's just finish the semi.
Where did those liberties go? He has so many liberties.
So black wins. So just going back, this seems to be the obvious move. But when black pushes through here, it's suddenly very difficult for white. Like even if white avoids the squeeze, it would be the same thing. It would be just about the same. White has 3 liberties left, and black has 4. Same thing.
That's crazy. Somebody stole a liberty.
Yeah,
somebody stole a liberty. That's what happened.
So suddenly it's surprisingly dangerous, and white just pushes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So white has to back off.
So it's going to be a big fight in the center. Obviously, white has potential to erase the whole center of black territory. So maybe it's dangerous for black too, but it's a life and death position for white. Very, very scary.
Yeah.
I would be scared. So that's why I made that variation back here where white plays here and seems to be escaping.
Because you don't like to be scared.
I don't like to be scared, no. So white plays here, and black answers on the side. So like if black is answering locally, then we can see that there's a lot of potential for this move to become sente, which would just be very easy for white. That would be a win for white.
Yep.
So black just plays on this side. And, it sort of looks like a miscalculation by white, but it's getting really, really exciting. Okay. So what's this? Now, this is the kind of stuff people do in actual games. Like they're messing with you
I know.
because both sides
I
are running
know.
out of time.
Right.
And this is going to set up a forcing move for black. It's making the forcing move here more important, and we're going to see this becoming a meaningful forcing move later in the game. So this is increasing the value of that forcing move. And so black extends here. So what's the status here? Black has saved those stones.
I have no clue. They're just gone into a...
Okay. It looks like white has 0 eyes, right?
Less than 0, like
okay.
negative eyes.
So there's 3 points that have potential to become white's eyes, actually. It's A, B, and C. White can capture that stone at A to make an eye there.
Okay.
Sometimes white can squeeze those 4 black stones on the left side to make an eye at B. Sometimes.
Yeah.
It has to happen.
If you say so, I don't believe it, but you say so, fine.
White can be doing stuff like this to get stones in the center. For instance, like this, one simple way to make an eye here would be to do stuff like this. That's an eye there in the center.
Okay, that's nicely done.
You saw that one, right?
No.
Well, you saw it now. So there's a potential eye at C, and we're going to see some potential for white to make eyes at A and B. And the correct order of moves to make that is very tricky. But obviously it involves counterattacks against, for instance, this black group is not alive, this one here. There's a potential
a lot more lively looking than the white group.
Yeah, you would think so, wouldn't you?
It's got the corner. Well, no, it doesn't really have the corner. Never mind.
If white connects here, there's some potential to squeeze those 4 stones on the left side. And when white plays a move here, then there's some potential against, I've marked the board up too much. Well, there's some potential for white to counterattack against these black stones too.
I don't think I think it looks exactly. I think that's exactly the right marking. It is just a mess. The game was like finished. It looked like it was finished. I was gonna go get some tea, and now we got a whole.
And you play safe in a position, then it probably gets pretty close anyway. So yeah, so black plays this. And you see, actually, black has managed to ignore white's connection because black played this forcing move. Yeah. Now, if white plays at A, black's going to play at B. So black plays a peep here. Black's trying to get rid of that eye I was showing you before.
Mm-hmm.
And black plays here. So just to go back a few moves, if black had simply cut there, what happens? Well, actually, this is dangerous for black to cut immediately, because white's going to push through here and has a forcing move here, which threatens both the 3 black stones and the 5, 6 black stones connecting up in the center. So if black answers on the left here, white's going to just capture these stones. Suddenly, all those black stones are just dead. Yeah. So that's a collapse for black. Black needs to somehow get rid of that double threat, because if black cannot cut at B, that means that at any point white could push through at A. So black has to find a way to get rid of that problem where black cannot cut at B. So that's the other thing that this move is doing. Black is creating an escape route for those black stones in the center. And then black just saves them. So that makes it possible now for black to cut on the 4th line. So now, let's see. White plays here.
Okay, I was looking at that.
If white pushes through here, let's do this one. If white pushes through here, now locally the fight to capture is looking dangerous for black, because if black just does this, then white wins the semi. White has 4 liberties and black has only 3.
Right.
So what black is going to do is black is going to crawl once. And now white has a headache, because black's threatening to connect up on the 1st line. Like if white plays something like this, black can connect up here.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I like that.
So if white answers here, then black can cut. Now black's going to win. Black wins by 1 move. All right, I took it this far, yeah. So going back to this point, the point is that even if white had played this move at here, white would still need to come back and connect at the mark point. These white stones are also short of liberties. So white needs that connection at the mark point. So the crawling point is a key move there. So white cannot push through yet. So instead, white pushes through here. So pushing through and cutting off those 4 stones was just not working.
Right. This is the one that I started to look at I'm trying to figure out.
Now, because black played that peep in the center, that means that white is not going to get that eye that I was talking about earlier.
Right.
So it stopped white from making that eye. Because otherwise, if white, let's just go back a few moves. Let's see if I can make it a bit more easy to understand. Let's say black had just saved the stones in the center. And white plays here, forcing black to connect underneath. White plays here. Looks like black's in trouble there. So probably has to answer here to keep the connection, right? Do you agree?
Yeah.
And now white's going to be able to make a life. Oh, sorry, not that one. Now white's going to make a life with an eye there and an eye in the center. So this is one of the basic threats that white has.
Man.
And that's what black is doing with this peep. Black's trying to take that away.
Mm-hmm.
So that this eye that white was trying to make at the A point is very important in whether this group is going to be alive or not. But the drawback for black is that this is a ko. This is already starting to look a bit desperate for black.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how white dealt with it, because it was sort of interesting. This is a point where this is very typical of AlphaGo. It doesn't play the intuitive move. I don't see any reason it shouldn't cut at A. That would be a more forceful way to play the ko.
Okay, because that was my instinct, but I thought, well, I must be missing something.
When white cuts here, it's a less direct ko. It's a bit more difficult for white to finish the ko sometimes, because connecting at this point here is usually not a very good way to finish the ko. White wants to be capturing a black stone. So that's slowing that process down a little bit. But I think what AlphaGo is telling us here is that white has enough ko threats anyway.
Right.
So white is threatening the surrounding black stones while trying to make a life. That's just what's happening here. And black is having to answer. And now it's another ko. So white ignored that ko threat on the left. And this is really funny because we're going to see that white group that's getting cut off is not going to die so easily. But white just ignored that ko threat and started the next ko. And white has this huge ko threat here, which is going to capture those black stones. So black has to answer that. And black has run out of ko threats.
Are you serious?
And black has run out of, well, this ko, finishing the ko with this move, it's a sente move. It's forcing against black.
Oh, look at that. Wow.
Yeah. So basically, black doesn't have anything bigger than playing this move to save the 2 stones. It means that just about anything that black had played, like if black had played, let's have black play a move that kills the upper right corner, it would just not be big enough compared to this. This would be so much bigger.
Oh, yeah.
So black doesn't have any valid ko threat. So black just takes the connection here. And the funny thing is that black is connected on the first line, but black is not connected. And white doesn't do anything about it. White can play here.
Oh my God.
If white takes those 4 stones, then white's going to be alive. If black answers on this side, it's another ko. And the whole black group is in trouble.
That's crazy.
Well, black's going to win.
Yes.
Black's going to win by playing, but it's going to be just this is so painful. So naturally, as a human player, I would want to punish black there, inflict more pain on black, just take the extra profit. But at this point, as white AlphaGo knows it's won already. It's not doing. It's just playing these mundane endgame moves, pretending it. Well, it does play that move, but then it doesn't follow up, and it just takes it. This is good enough. And allows black.
That is so unhuman. Like, I mean, we would definitely.
You would want to sort of, make use of that thing, but it doesn't.
Well, you're entitled.
Yeah. Oh, extending here, one final variation. When white crawls here, there's a final a final fight to capture. Black extends here.
Of course there is.
Extends again.
This is game 30. You know, you want to have just a boring game for game 30.
If white connects here, black gets to erase some of white's territory. That would be a profit for black. So white doesn't connect, but plays here. And black can cut white off. This white group has about 3 liberties. But black is in a position where black does not have 3 liberties. Black has... This looks like the 2 hanes will extend black's... Like if white answers here,
it does.
This is the double hane extending black's liberties by 1. That black would win that scenario. But actually, white can cut here. White can trump that Tesuji by playing here and playing here and pulling back.
Oh,
black
sweet.
is just lost. So in this case, it doesn't work for black. If black pushes through, I do have black pushing through. White has to be careful to play this way, and then it's easy. By the way, if white answers this way, it's a bit more tricky because black can squeeze here and play here. And then white has no way to push, so black would actually win this. So it's important for white to just go straight after the keystone.
You know, that would be easy to miss. That's a little complicated.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that just works. That just works immediately.
Put that variation into the SGF file. But the key move here is probably this move where black is filling from behind. Yeah.
That is very clever.
And so the game proceeds. We're just having an end game at this point. And I think, again, did white resign, I suppose? I mean, black. They're playing the end game. You see, black did get most of the territory back, but it wasn't good enough. So yes, black did resign eventually at this point. Let's see if I get there. They're playing very normal. I agree with most of the end game moves. There's nothing wrong there. And pretty soon black is going to resign. They're playing this ko in the corner. It doesn't really matter. I mean, black is probably going to win that ko. So in the game, black took the ko and white played this final big end game. And we're sort of running out of end game moves. Like there's a big end game move here on the upper side. And then the rest of them are pretty small.
Wow.
And so I made a variation for the end game, going back 2 moves. So here, a variation for black. This Atari, I just played the Atari to separate this from the game, because black's going to take the ko anyway. And I'm going to allow black to win. Black's probably has enough ko threats, so black's going to win the ko. And I took it to the end of the game, actually. So this is my version of the end game. And I think it was 3/4 of a stone. And in the Japanese rules, that turned out to be 2.5 points.
Wow.
So it's a bigger win than usual.
Pretty good size win.
Bigger than usual. That would still be a close game for human players.
Right, of course. But what just a phenomenal game, you know, starting with that move that you talked about that you would have thought of but would have decided, you know, didn't work. The invasion on the left. That's just.
Well, it's so dangerous when white seems to have a good game, a winnable game going. You're talking maybe about this move.
No. Much farther with where the white in the invasion.
This one. Oh, sorry. Something in the lower right.
Left, up in the left. When after the game had all settled down.
Oh, the black invasion.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
This one.
That's it. Sorry, my bad. Yep.
I would have thought of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that's the one. Yeah, you would have thought of that. But you said that's the one where you said that you would have thought of it, but you would have thought it probably didn't work.
Right.
And
And it
as
made the game really, really exciting, didn't it?
oh my God, I literally, I seriously, because I hadn't gone over this, I seriously thought we were coming into the end, and I was going to go have my, and so
Take out the wine, maybe.
complicated.
Huh?
How long did it take you to work that out? I mean, just incredible. Those variations are so long.
I'm not really finished yet. Yeah, well, that's
Good
just
answer.
a guess at this point.
Wow. Wow. All right. Well, that this is a very fitting game 30, Michael. First of all, thank you, and of course, big thanks to our AGA members who are very happy, from what I hear, to make these videos possible. And just a reminder that if you'd like to support this content, and from reading the comments, I know you do, please consider consider joining the American Go Association, usgo.org. It's very easy. Hop on over. Lots and lots of cool stuff on the website. So poke around when you're there, but stop by where it says join, usgo.org. Just takes a couple of minutes. We appreciate the support. And we will be back next week. Thanks again for watching. And thanks again, Michael.